On behalf of our Temple Israel Goodman Family Museum Committee, I am happy to announce that we have installed our newest exhibit. It is the first since COVID, and you are going to love it. It is entitled Paper Golems. I'll show you a little bit more. Paper Golems. And it is a collection, it's the collection of work of our let me start that sentence again. The collection is the work of self-proclaimed nice Jewish artist, Isaac Brynjegard-Bialik, and he really is a nice Jewish artist, who specializes in the traditional art of Jewish paper cutting, but with a twist of his own modern and unique style. You see, he cuts up comic books and, as he explains, reassembles them into work made of clean lines and patterns, sinuous shapes and sharp edges, large fields of color, and small, intimate spaces. His work is creative, imaginative, fun, thoughtful, and Jewish. He always starts with a Jewish text and expands upon it in a midrashic construct, interpreting and expounding upon the original to find new understandings for us in our modern day. And then layering it with the comics. And he brings an even deeper meaning to the traditional themes. I love his work, and I love Isaac. He and his wife, Shauna, who was a classmate of mine back in Jerusalem 100 years ago, 27 years ago, are longtime friends of mine, and they work together. And tonight, they are praying with us virtually from California, so everyone turn around and wave at the camera and wish them a Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Isaac and Shauna. Isaac is a prolific artist with works including the 12 tribes of Israel, a variety of interpretations of Jewish liturgy, portraits of our patriarchs and matriarchs, and modern women of valor, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg, among others. Now, of his works, I'm partial to the women superheroes, particularly Wonder Woman. She's my favorite. And there are lots of other pieces that tickle my fancy, such as a piece called Greenberg, because of its Detroit connection, as it depicts Hank Greenberg wearing his tiger uniform. Plus, our museum already owns Jacob and his multicolored coat. So Paper Golems was Isaac's pandemic project. Do you remember the story of the golem? Although it has its roots in Torah and Talmud, it was really the 16th century Kabbalists who brought the golem to life in a Frankenstein monster-esque creation. The most famous version of the story is that of Rabbi Judah Loew of Prague, also called Maharal, who shapes his golem out of mud, creating him with the express purpose of defending the Jewish community from blood libel and anti-Semitic attacks. To bring his creation to life, Rabbi Loew engraves the word emet, truth, on the creature's forehead. Can you see emet right up here? But in Hebrew, aleph, mem, taf. At first, the golem works like a charm, employed by day in the synagogue as a shamus, and protecting and defending the Jewish community by night. And like all folk tales and fairy tales, there are many versions of the story. In one, the golem falls in love, but then turns into a violent monster when rejected by his beloved. Others depict the golem going on a murderous rampage. And still yet another, a children's book, the golem's work is simply done, and the time has come to return to earth despite his wanting to stay. In all three versions, Rabbi Loew manages to deactivate the golem just in time. And he does so by erasing the aleph on his forehead so that the word emet, truth, becomes the word met, death. Emet, met, truth, death. It's kind of spooky, isn't it? After the golem is gone, Rabbi Loew hides the clay which was once the golem in the attic of the synagogue, where some say it is still there today, ready to be brought back to life if ever needed again to protect the Jews. With the rise in anti-Semitism that we are seeing today, the highest levels in a century in this country according to the ADL, it might sometimes feel like we do need a golem again. But I don't think that we have to worry about Isaac's golems taking over our temple if things do go awry, as they do in the story. His creations feel more like friend than foe. Each one has a name and a purpose, reflecting these past 3 COVID years. Here are a few from the exhibit. Clayface. Do you guys know who that is? Well, I didn't either. Oh, someone in the back does. Rabbi Jen, she's our Marvel expert. Clayface, whose purpose emerges in his potential for change, featuring the comic book villain who finds redemption as a Gotham City superhero. Oh, Gotham City. That must mean he's DC, not Marvel. Oh, see, I've learned something from my son. There's Georgia, which feels particularly relevant this week as the Georgia Senate election ended in a runoff. This golem represents equal access to suffrage, featuring Batwoman and Wonder Woman, who worked to get out the vote. And Resiliency, who fights violence in Israel, featuring Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, with stretchy power and a blue and white suit in reference to Israel's flag. And Strange, now that's Dr. Strange to us, for doctors and scientists to help us fight the coronavirus, although we might want to add RSV and the flu to their battle as well. Each one of the 35 golems we have on display represents different values, hopes, and aspirations. Every one of them is here for a reason, and whether made out of mud or paper, is meant to protect, serve, and bring control to a world that feels out of control. So I've been thinking about our golems in the context of Veterans Day today, since tonight's Kabbalat Shabbat is also a service to honor our veterans. Veterans Day, originally called Armistice Day, marks the end of fighting of World War I on the 11th hour of the 11th month of the 11th year, of the 11th day of the 11th month of the year. It's not often that Veterans Day falls on Shabbat, but when it does, we take this opportunity. During dinner tonight, we showed our veterans pictures, and during our service in just a few minutes, we will invite you to join us on the bima to open the Ark for the Aleinu. I realize that your role as soldiers in our nation's armed forces isn't so different from our modern golems or the superhero comics that define them. Like theirs, your job was to protect our country, to preserve our values and our way of life, to fight for freedom and justice and right. But where the golems are make-believe, you are real, and your sacrifices are real. You have put your life on the line for this country, for this community, and for us. And to you, we are truly grateful. As we hear your stories of war and struggle, we incorporate them into our own stories, into the stories of our people, and we pass along the lessons that you have taught us. You remind us how valuable our freedoms are and that they come at a price. You instill in us the importance of patriotism, of allegiance, of commitment to our nation, even if we don't always agree with its leaders or its policy, because we live in a democracy. And to this day, we enjoy the rights and privileges that you fought for so that we could all be free. And please know that we recognize that it is our duty to remember that and to treasure these freedoms that we so often take for granted. As veterans, you are the foundation of this nation. And so on this Veterans Day, we honor you. On this Veterans Day, we recognize you as our heroes. On this Veterans Day, we thank you for your service, and we pray that the day will come soon when nation shall not lift up sword against nation, and neither shall they learn war anymore. There's a poem by one of my favorite poets, Yehuda Amichai. It's on page 80 of this prayer book if you want to follow along. It goes like this. Don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares. Don't stop. Go on beating and make musical instruments out of them. Whoever wants to make war again will have to turn them into plowshares first. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will, as together we say, Amen.